Lagos, a city of energy, ambition, and endless possibilities. In the heart of its bustling streets, two lives were about to intertwine in ways neither had imagined. Adama, a fiercely talented fashion designer, had spent years stitching her dreams into reality, determined to carve a name for herself in the competitive world of haute couture. Kofi, a passionate journalist, had made it his mission to uncover the stories that mattered, believing that words could shape the world. Their paths crossed unexpectedly, one seeking recognition, the other seeking truth. What began as a simple interview soon became a connection neither could ignore. But when ambition and love pull in opposite directions, can two souls find a way to weave their futures together? This is a story of passion, destiny, and a love strong enough to defy distance and doubt. A story where every moment, like the finest fabric, is woven with care. Welcome to Threads of Fate, the designer and the journalist. In the bustling city of Lagos, where the streets hum with life and the skyline is painted with towering buildings and the glow of neon lights, lived a young woman named Adama. She was not just any woman, she was an artist, a designer whose hands transformed fabric into masterpieces. She had inherited the skill from her mother, a woman who believed that every stitch told a story. Adama ran her own small fashion studio in Yoba, where she spent her days designing vibrant, culture-infused outfits that blended tradition with modern style. She had big dreams of showcasing African fashion on the world stage. But love, that was not part of the plan. In another part of the city, a young journalist named Kofi had just returned from an assignment in Ghana. Kofi was not like the other reporters who thrived on politics and controversy. He was a storyteller at heart. He believed that the beauty of Africa lay in its people, its culture, and its traditions. He wrote articles about artists, musicians, and entrepreneurs who were shaping the future while holding on to their roots. It was his passion for these stories that led him to Adama's boutique one afternoon. It was supposed to be just another feature piece for the magazine, an article about a rising designer who was revolutionizing African fashion. But from the moment Kofi stepped into her studio, surrounded by bolts of colorful Ankara fabric and unfinished sketches pinned to the walls, he felt something shift. Adama, dressed in one of her own creations, a fitted, off-shoulder gown with patterns that seemed to dance under the light, greeted him with a polite but guarded smile. She was used to people underestimating her, assuming that fashion was nothing more than vanity. But as Kofi asked his questions, she realized that he wasn't just another journalist looking for a catchy headline. He was genuinely interested in the story behind her work, in the way she used her designs to celebrate African identity. Their conversation stretched beyond the interview, weaving through topics of art, history, and dreams. Kofi was fascinated by Adama's dedication, by the way she spoke about colors and patterns as if they were a language of their own. Adama, in turn, was drawn to the way Kofi saw the world, not just as it was, but as it could be. He spoke with the same passion she felt when she designed, and for the first time, she wondered if love wasn't a distraction, but another form of creation, one that required patience, care, and the right partnership. As weeks passed, their paths continued to cross. What had begun as an interview turned into casual coffee meetups, late-night phone calls, and unexpected conversations that stretched for hours. Adama found herself looking forward to Kofi's text, to the way he always had a new story to tell about a street artist he had met, a hidden cafe that served the best jollof rice, or an old record he had discovered in his father's collection. And Kofi. He found himself drawn to Adama's world, to the way she spoke about fabrics as if they held entire histories within their threads. But love is never without its challenges. Adama had built her life around independence. She had fought hard to establish herself in an industry dominated by big names, and she wasn't willing to slow down for anyone. Her career was finally gaining traction, international buyers were showing interest in her work, and there was talk of a major fashion show in Paris. Romance, she feared, could be a distraction. Meanwhile, Kofi had his own crossroads to face. His dream was to start a documentary series on African creatives, one that would take him across the continent. His career was calling him elsewhere, just as Adama's was pulling her in another direction. One evening, under the twinkling fairy lights of a rooftop lounge in Victoria Island, they sat across from each other, the weight of unspoken words between them. The city stretched out below, alive with the hum of traffic and distant laughter. Adama traced the rim of her glass, finally voicing what had been on her mind for weeks. "I don't want to lose myself in love, Kofi," she said softly. "I've spent so long trying to build this dream. What if I wake up one day and realize I've let it go?" Kofi leaned forward, his gaze steady. "Love isn't meant to make you lose yourself, Adama. It's meant to help you see yourself more clearly. I would never ask you to choose between me and your dreams. I just want to walk beside you while you chase them." That night, Adama lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her apartment, thinking about his words. Love was a thread, one that could weave into the fabric of her life without unraveling everything she had built. Maybe she didn't have to choose. Maybe she could have both. As fate would have it, just weeks later, an unexpected opportunity presented itself. Kofi's documentary project was approved, and Adama received confirmation that her designs would be featured in the Paris show. It was a moment of triumph, yet also one of decision. Would they walk separate paths, letting distance pull them apart? Or would they find a way to stitch their futures together? On the evening before her flight to Paris, Adama found a package waiting for her at her studio. Inside was a leather-bound notebook with a handwritten note tucked into the first page. "Every great story deserves to be told. Write ours. Kofi." Alongside it was a single strip of fabric, one of her own designs, carefully sewn into the inside cover. A reminder that no matter where they went, their stories would always be intertwined. As Adama boarded her flight, she held onto that notebook, knowing that love didn't mean sacrificing dreams, it meant having someone who believed in them as much as you did. And somewhere, miles away, Kofi stood by his camera, ready to capture the world, knowing that some stories, like love, were worth waiting for. As Adama's flight touched down in Paris, she felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty. This was the moment she had worked so hard for. Her designs were about to be showcased on an international stage. But in the quiet moments between the flashing cameras and the runway lights, she found herself thinking about Kofi, about the words he had written in the notebook, and about what it truly meant to have someone walk beside you in life. Back in Lagos, Kofi was preparing for his own journey. His documentary series was set to begin in a few weeks, and he had already lined up interviews with artists and entrepreneurs from across the continent. But something didn't sit right. He had spent years telling other people's stories, capturing their journeys, yet his own felt incomplete. He knew that love and ambition didn't have to be separate threads, they could be woven together into something even stronger. The night of the Paris fashion show arrived, and Adama stood backstage, dressed in a stunning creation of her own design, a blend of modern elegance and traditional African patterns. The room buzzed with energy as models strutted down the runway, showcasing her collection to an audience of international designers, buyers, and critics. As the final model took her turn, applause erupted, and Adama stepped onto the stage for her bow. It was everything she had dreamed of. But just as she turned to leave, she spotted a familiar figure in the crowd. Kofi. He was standing near the entrance, a camera slung over his shoulder, his eyes locked on her with pride. For a moment, the world around her faded, and all she could see was him. Later that night, as they walked through the streets of Paris, the city lights casting a golden glow around them, Adama finally spoke. "You're supposed to be filming your documentary," she teased, nudging him playfully. Kofi chuckled, slipping his hand into hers. And you're supposed to be celebrating your big night, he replied. But here we are. She looked up at him, realizing that for the first time, she wasn't afraid of love pulling her away from her dreams. Instead, it felt like a bridge, something that connected, rather than divided. So, what happens now? She asked softly. Kofi smiled. We build a life where we don't have to choose. Where your dreams and mine can grow side by side. Months later, their love story continued, not as an obstacle to their ambitions, but as a source of strength. Adama expanded her fashion brand, collaborating with African designers across the continent. Kofi's documentary gained international recognition, showcasing the talents and voices that often went unheard. And through it all, they found ways to be present for each other, whether it was Kofi flying in for Adama's Fashion Week showcases, or Adama joining him on his travels, sketching designs in the corners of cafes as he walked. Love, they realized, wasn't about sacrificing dreams. It was about having someone who believed in them just as much as you did. And as they stood together at the opening of Adama's first flagship boutique in Lagos, surrounded by friends, family, and the vibrant energy of the city they called home, they knew they had stitched together something truly beautiful. Months had passed since Adama's triumphant debut in Paris. Her designs had graced international runways, and her name was now whispered with admiration in the fashion world. Yet, amidst all the success, her greatest joy was the presence of Kofi, her anchor, her storyteller, the man who had believed in her even when she doubted herself. One warm evening, under the golden glow of the setting Lagos sun, Kofi led Adama to a quiet spot overlooking the ocean. The breeze carried the scent of salt and the distant hum of the bustling city. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small, leather-bound notebook, the same one he had carried since their first interview. I've written many stories in here, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Stories of visionaries, of dreamers, of people who changed the world. But there's one story I've yet to write, our story. Adama's breath caught as he knelt before her, the ocean waves echoing his words. Marry me, Adama. Let's create something timeless, together. Tears welled in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. She had stitched together many designs, but this was the most beautiful pattern of all. Yes, Kofi, she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. The ceremony was a breathtaking blend of tradition and modern elegance, held in a lush Lagos garden adorned with golden fairy lights and woven African fabric banners. Adama, radiant in a gown she designed herself, an exquisite fusion of Ankara prints and soft silk, walked down the aisle, her heart full. Kofi, standing at the altar in a deep blue agbada, his signature notebook tucked into his pocket, watched her with the look of a man who had found his greatest story. As they exchanged vows, their friends and family watched with tears and smiles. Their love had weathered distance, doubt, and ambition. And now, they stood together, ready to write the next chapter. That evening, under the stars, as music and laughter filled the air, Adama and Kofi danced, two souls who had woven their dreams into one beautiful tapestry. And so, their story continued, proving that sometimes, love is the thread that holds everything together. As the golden sun dipped below the Lagos skyline, the story of Adama and Kofi reached its most beautiful chapter. And so, their journey continued, woven into the fabric of time, in the rhythm of the storyteller's drum. This has been another unforgettable tale from Drums of the Storyteller, where African folktales come alive with lessons, love, and destiny. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible African stories. Until next time, may your own story be woven with wisdom, courage, and love.